All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I know we've a couple of people that still probably will be joining us, but we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 1 o'clock. So welcome. If I haven't met you before, it's nice to meet you. I'm Valerie Garcia, and we are going to be spending the next 45 minutes or so together talking about how today is not a pajama day. So I'm going to start out with a little story and explain where the title of that came from. Um, but just a little bit of housekeeping before we do that. I am recording this session, so we will make sure that you get a copy of it. So you don't need to worry about taking screenshots. So we'll make sure that you get a copy of this. And we have a chat box or a Q&A option on this call. So if you have any questions, if I don't take them throughout the call, I will definitely be taking time for Q&A at the end. So don't be afraid to drop your questions in there as we go. All right. So we're going to jump right in. A little bit of a quick story about me. I grew up on a farm in West Michigan. We had a pet rooster named Rusty that used to meet us at the end of the driveway when we got off the school bus. So it was a legit farm. And one of the things I learned really early on in life, that farming is a lot like real estate. If you don't work, you don't eat. And so I decided pretty early on that I wasn't going to have the farming life when I grew up. I wanted to work in an office. Like, that was my plan and my goal. But I started to find, over the years that working in an office kind of felt a lot like this. It was a lot of, a lot of meetings and a lot of cubicles. And so, it started to feel a little bit more like this than the previous mug that you saw. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to run my own business. And I thought it was going to feel a little bit more like this than it does. So I thought, you can work from anywhere. It's going to feel pretty chill. But what I found over time was that running your own business, being your own boss, felt a little bit more like this. And I found that I started to experience the phenomenon that I refer to as pajama days. And so those are kind of days where you tend to maybe go from like daytime pajamas to nighttime pajamas, and maybe you don't have a lot on your schedule, or you don't have some things lined up, and so you end up spending a lot of time sitting on the couch, maybe watching Netflix, wondering what it is that you should be doing. And one of the things I also found really quickly in this business is that or that pajama days can turn into pajama seasons. Now, sometimes this is just a factor of our business. Sometimes we just have pajama seasons naturally. Sometimes routine things like Christmas and New Year's, that sort of feels like a pajama season. And sometimes in the middle of the summer in certain markets. And sometimes pajama days or seasons can be brought upon us. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're in a period of time where we did not expect to be working at the pace that we are. And we're all going through it. Everybody in different industries all over the world right now are experiencing a season of, what do I do? What do I say? How do I spend my time? I am not experiencing work and life the way it normally feels. And so the question is, what do we focus on when that happens? And that's really what I want to help you with today. And I want you to know that I'm coming from a place of, I am equally in the weeds with you on this right now. I am having pajama days that I am fighting through right now and figuring out what I should be doing to continue to build my business throughout this season. And those are the pieces of advice that I want to share with you today. What I'm doing, what other top producing agents around the world are doing that I'm working with. What are people doing to focus on the things that matter right now and continue to grow throughout this really difficult season? So I'm going to give you 4 key areas to focus on today, 4 kind of key things that we should remember and what we should do in each of these areas to continue to grow and stay motivated and doing something and be productive and keep our morale up and not curl up in a ball and cry all the time, right? Sometimes we can do that, but not all the time. So these 4 areas to focus on are time, money, marketing, and sanity. And that's how we're going to break it up today. So we're going to start out with time. Now, I'm going to give you a bunch of information. Like I said, it's going to come at you real fast. We've got about 45 minutes. I'm going to power through it. I'm going to take some questions at the end, but I am recording this session, so you will get a copy of it when it's over. All right, so let's dive right into time. I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of these days lately where I've kind of woken up and before you know it, you look outside, it's starting to get dark, and you think, how did it get so late so soon? Sometimes this can happen to us because we're super busy and it's fun. And sometimes this can happen to us because we feel like the day is just sort of been a whole long trail of nothing. So what do we do to manage our time on pajama days? Step one is get dressed. Now, this one seems obvious. This one sort of seems like, duh, thank you very much. But I'm not so much talking about your clothes as I'm talking about your routine. I find that this is really important, especially for me right now. I get up, I shower, have breakfast, I get dressed, and I sit down at my desk, which currently right now is my grandmother's kitchen table. And I get to work. Even if I don't necessarily always have a plan for how the day is going to go or what I'm going to do, I make sure that I always get up and get dressed and get to work and keep the routine as similar to my regular routine as possible. Now, I know some of you are used to like going to Tim's or Starbucks and having a few minutes to chat with people at the office. There are ways to recreate that, but getting started is the most important part. Second part of that is don't just sit there. Once you get up and get dressed, do something. Now, again, we're not all doing the things that we would like to be doing or that we would normally be doing. So what should you be doing? Well, you can be writing notes or creating content or cleaning out your database or calling people. You can be reading books, working on your business, some of the things that you haven't, go back to your business plan, some of the things you haven't achieved. You can take online classes. You're doing that right now. Write thank you notes, get involved in community causes. There are so many things that you could be doing. The key is to do something. The third thing about managing your time is celebrating small wins. Now, I don't know about you, but those pancakes look really good right now. Here's the thing about pajama days is that we tend to overcompensate ourselves for small wins. So, for example, we get up, we have breakfast, we get dressed, we answer an email, and we think, good job, Val. Now you can go sit on the couch and binge Netflix for the next 22 hours. And that's really not how it should be working. That's kind of how pajama days turn into pajama season. So small wins don't equal big rewards. Big rewards are for big wins. We have to sort of know the difference. So yeah, you know what? You cleaned out your inbox, great. You can take 5 minutes, stretch, play with the cat, eat a snack, walk to the mailbox, whatever you need to do, and then focus again on doing something. Get serious about time blocking. This is something that's just really sort of changed my business over the years in terms of what am I doing and when am I doing it. Now, time blocking can be a struggle for some of us because we feel like we need to be blocking big chunks of time, like an hour at a time. And our attention spans, quite frankly, are just not an hour long. There's a reason why I cut webinars off at 45 minutes because we get distracted and our attention spans are not as long as they should be. So time blocking can be really difficult. But what I recommend is time block in shorter chunks. So 20 minutes of really focused time where you set a timer can actually be more effective than if you had a whole bunch of time blocked off. Consistency is more important than length of time. Also, I would encourage you to focus on your most productive time of the day. So some of you are early birds. You're those weirdos that get up at 5 a.m. and you're like, yes, let's face the day. And then there are some people that are really productive in the middle of the day. And then there are some people that are night owls and they work till really late. So focus on when your most productive time is. Once you know that, you can start blocking out some of the most important things to do when you're most productive. Now, if you need to be making calls and you're a night owl, probably can't call people at 11 o'clock at night, but you do have the ability to sort of focus on some of those more productive times of day. Treat phone calls like appointments. This one's really also helped me because I'm of that not millennial generation and not Gen X generation, but kind of right in the middle where I really don't like talking on the phone. To be honest, I don't enjoy it, but phone calls are a really important part of my work. I have coaching calls and I have outgoing phone calls that I need to schedule with clients. And so scheduling them has made all the difference for me. I pick a time of day where I am really most productive and most upbeat, and that's when I schedule my calls for. We can't really schedule our incoming calls, but we can absolutely schedule our outgoing calls and then treat them like appointments. And so that really helps us stick with it and make the phone calls. Also important, but equally challenging right now is actually getting out of our little space. So I tend to work from home when I'm not traveling. And so literally I have to leave the house sometimes. I go and work from a co-working space or the library or somewhere else to just get a different sense of environment. Now, we're really kind of stuck where we are right now. And that's a good thing. Being safe at home is most important. So right now you may need to get a different perspective by changing rooms in your house, or if it's a nice day, maybe working from the patio, or maybe facing a window if you don't normally, maybe need to rearrange some furniture, but get a different perspective. And if you're not seeing real people right now, maybe it's a good time to schedule some Zoom calls with people so that you can see other people's faces and interact. So now's a good time to reach out and create those, accountability groups, pick 3 or 4 people and have a regular Zoom call. So those are some good options. This is something that we normally really struggle with when it comes to managing our time, and that is delegation. We are typically pretty sucky at it, most of us adults, because we tend to feel like by the time that I teach somebody how to do this the way that I like it done, it would be just easier for me to do it myself. But the problem is that a lot of times that means we spend a ton of time doing stuff that we shouldn't be doing, that take up a lot of our energy and effort, or maybe stuff that we're not really good at. And so maybe we need to start identifying what we spend that time on that we could delegate to others. So, for some of the people that I work with, their biggest holdup is I don't send out newsletters because I don't know how to put templates together in MailChimp or whatever. And so, they reach out, we find somebody to help them with that, gets them sort of off the fence and off they go. So maybe sometimes it's just that little piece that's holding you back from doing the thing that would make a huge difference in your business. So finding those partnerships that allow you to focus on the things that you're best at. That's a really important thing that you can do on pajama days. So those are the tips that I have for you about managing your time in pajama days or seasons. Let's now focus a little bit more on how we spend our money, because quite frankly, our time and our money are our most valuable resources that we have at our disposal in our businesses. So let's look at some of the ways that we are spending our money. Now, we like to joke a lot in this industry that anyone who lives within their means suffers from a lack of imagination, that we're all, a little bit overextended in this regard. But the truth is we don't have to be. And especially when we hit pajama days is when it all starts to feel not just a little overwhelming, but it can also feel a little bit stifling. When we live in a situation where we don't know where our money's coming from or where it's going, that can be a little bit scary when the money stops coming in for a while. Now, the situation that we're in right now is temporary, and we know that, but we don't know how long it's going to last. So some of these tips will help you. The first thing when we talk about money, I always start with is understanding your value. Now, what's most important is that you understand that your value is not how much you cost. And the reason why I want to start with this is because I've been hearing so many stats and so many quotes over the last couple of days talking about marketing. And so many people have been saying, if you're selling something right now, nobody wants to hear it. But if you are helping someone or you are communicating value, then it's so important to your audience. And so right now is a more important time than ever to understand your value, not your cost, and especially not what it is that you're selling. So what does that mean? What I mean is, when I ask you what you do for a living, most of you would answer me, Val, I'm a realtor. And that's great, except most people don't know what realtors do. In fact, most people think that realtors put signs in yards and cash big checks. And the reality is there's so much more to the job. So knowing your value starts by answering the question, what do you do, with what you actually do. I negotiate. I help people conserve their financial investments. I help people make sound investments. I help people understand what their options are in difficult situations. I help people navigate challenging life changes and figure out how to do that in the best way for them financially. All of those things are things that you do. And the nice thing about understanding that and figuring out what that means to others is that then ties into the next thing, which is you can articulate that to people. So once you figure out what your value is, you can put it into words. Now, we're going to talk about marketing in a few minutes, but what you actually do, what you do every day, is the stuff you should be talking about right now. Not, hey, it's a great time to buy or sell, but hey, if you have questions about your investments, if you have questions about how this situation is impacting your financial situation, I want to help you. That's what you do. So don't answer that question with who you are or what your job title is. Answer that question with what you actually do and how that translates to other people. The next step in understanding your money is establishing your cost. Now, this is a really important thing too, not so much right at this moment, but in general, when you're looking at your expenses, where your funds come from and where they go, is understanding that when times are tough, people who have experience and expertise are worth more. So just like at Christmas, when everybody wants a Tickle Me Elmo, they don't put Tickle Me Elmos on sale. They, in fact, are harder to find. And so right now is not the time to be thinking, I need to slash my costs. I need to make everything free. I need to make everything super available to everybody, and it needs to be cheaper than ever. Now you need to be focusing on the value as opposed to the cost. When we're also talking about money, one of the most important things that we can talk about when it comes to pajama days or seasons are how to plan for your expenses. The reality is there will always be bills in our business, and then there are expenses that are extra to pay for things that are going to build our business. Right now, we need to be looking very closely at where our funds are going. What are we spending money on? Are they the things that we have to pay for our business? Are they the expenses that we're paying to grow our business? And are those expenses relevant right now? Every one of those automatic deductions that comes from your credit card that pays for those things, we should be looking at those a little bit more closely right now and figuring out two things. One, should I be keeping that cost on my books? And two, if I am keeping that cost on my books, am I making the most out of that tool so that I am earning that money back? So right now, if you're paying for all these services and lead gen tools and online things, are you using them to their capacity? And if not, now's a really good time, or really any pajama season is a good time to either eliminate those costs or spend the time to learn how to use them. The next step is something my grandmother always says. She's of the generation that went through the war and the depression, and she says, be prepared to skimp. And I refer to that as dialing it back, yo. Like sometimes we have to make decisions that not everything makes the cut. So like I said to you, some of those expenses, if you understand where your money goes, may not make the cut. Sometimes those expenses may be things that right now you need to dial back on, and you need to redirect those funds to other things. So understanding where you spend your money is going to help you make those decisions. Another important part of managing our money in our business is savings. So as we're seeing right now, there always will be rainy days in our business. And right now we're kind of in a bit of a monsoon. So now's a really good time to be saving. If you are redirecting those funds from things that you decide not to continue to pay for, put them in a savings account. Every little bit is going to help you because you are going to need to continue to grow your business, build your business, and accomplish your goals through this process. So one of the things that really helps me is I use one of those bank accounts that rolls up my spending to the next dollar. So I add every one of those little amounts up into a savings account that I don't touch. And at the end of the year, it's a couple $100s in there, and that makes a difference. So just look at some of the ways that you can save. Even little bits will make a big difference right now. The next stage of looking at where your money goes and where it's coming from is making strategic investment decisions. So a good thing to remember is you don't need all the things. So some tools, trips, and opportunities are worth paying for, and some aren't. As you're looking through those expenses, as you're sort of evaluating or maybe even doing a bit of a financial audit on your business right now, these are the three questions that I want you to ask yourself when it comes to a tool or a website or anything that you're paying for right now. Does this save you time? Does it make you money? Or does it help you build relationships? if you can at least tick one of those boxes off, then that is a positive result. But if you are finding that you're paying for stuff that doesn't save you time or make you money or help you build relationships, that's when you have to make the decision to either cut it out or to start using it to its potential. So good things to remember right now, and also really good things to work on during a pajama season like we're in right now. Some of you haven't completed your taxes yet. And so now's a really good time to go back through all of your expenses and start to evaluate what you actually spend money on. This one is also important and is sort of the opposite of delegating. Stop replacing time with money. So one of the things that we need to do, especially when we get into a season like we're in right now, is understand what is truly more valuable. Right now, what is more valuable to you in your individual business? Is it time that you would rather or should be rather spending time doing something else? Or is it money? And so sometimes we have to dig deep and do the work. Sometimes we need to delegate. Sometimes we need to not outsource. So a really good example of this is a lot of people pay people to upload stuff into their databases or do data entry for them. A lot of people might pay people to automate their marketing materials. Now is the time where perhaps this is a situation where you can look at some of those services and ask yourself, can I do the work myself? Was it just a matter of I didn't have the time? Do I have that time now? Does that become more valuable? So just something to think about there. All right, moving into section 3 of marketing. So we've talked about our time and we've talked about our money. So now let's look at some of the things that we spend our time and money on, which are marketing. So I always start with my favorite quote about marketing here. Doing business without marketing is like winking at a girl in the dark. You know what you're doing, but nobody else does. And this is so true. I mean, marketing is just a really fundamental piece of our business, and it tells people what it is that we do. But as I mentioned on a webinar that I did this morning, it was, there are two definitions of marketing. One is selling something, and the other is communicating value to people. And so right now, we really need to be focusing on the communicating the value part as opposed to the selling. So what does that look like? How do we do marketing really well in the time of pajama seasons? My first piece of advice to you is fall in love with what you do. Now, this is a tricky one because there are pieces of our jobs that we are never going to fall in love with. There are parts of what we do that we are never really going to enjoy. For me, it happens to be accounting. I'm good at it, but I don't love it. And I'm never really going to love it. But there are pieces of my job that I absolutely love. And it's really important as you start looking at your marketing to figure out, what do you love about what you do? Because if that doesn't come through in your marketing, you won't be communicating value. You won't be communicating what it is that you do and what the value of that is to the people that are receiving your information. And remembering that if you don't love it, why would I pay you to do it for me? Because clearly it has to start with you. The second thing is that you need to stop selling yourself. This is also really, really timely because right now we're just inundated with messages around everything that's going on right now. We're hearing a lot of messaging around, how we care for you in the middle of these troubled times. And we're kind of almost getting a little bit sick of hearing that message of people using this situation to sell themselves. So what I want you to do is take some of this time that you have, look at the messaging that you're sending out, look at the marketing materials that you're creating, and ask yourself, am I selling me, or am I explaining what I do and why it matters to people? Again, am I answering questions and solving problems? That's probably the key benchmark for any of your marketing, whether it hits the mark or not, is, am I talking about myself or am I talking to them about what they need? Another thing that's really important about your marketing is that you find your signature style and really stick to it. I think what we can do a lot of times when we get to crisis or a pajama day is that we tend to flail a bit. We tend to think, I need to try everything. I need to diversify. I need to do what they're doing. I need to try doing 16 things at once in case something works. And I think where we struggle with that is then we can sometimes lose our tone, our brand, our style, and it comes across as a little bit frantic and mismatched and not very effective. And so now is not the time to sort of flail all over and try doing 17 things at once. It's to get really intentional about the things that you're doing. So your voice and your style should feel recognizable across anything that you do. I was working with a client this week. I'm putting out a newsletter, and I said to this client, I said, when it goes out, the very best feedback that you can get is, when I read this, I hear your voice. And so that newsletter went out today, and we were following through with the feedback, and all of the feedback said, oh, I love this. It sounds just like you. When I read this, I can hear your voice in my head. And I thought, perfect, we nailed it. And that's really what you want, because here's the problem with that. If you don't do that, when they finally meet you in person, you don't want them to think, oh my gosh, you are nothing like what I expected. You want them to think, yes, you are exactly what I expected. And so you want to make sure your marketing becomes recognizable. This one is also super important, guys. And this one is maybe the most challenging. And for most of the people that I work with in terms of coaching and clients, this is the thing that I tell them the most, is that we have to ship before we're ready. Sometimes we have to smash the go button, even when things are not perfect. I started sending out a newsletter 3 years ago to my database. Some of you on the call may get it from me every month. And the first month that I sent that out, I sat on it for 3 weeks, and I was super concerned. Like, the second I hit go on this, I'm going to find a typo, and maybe the formatting is going to be wrong, and I'm going to have made some mistakes. And so finally I hit the go button, and out it went. And sure enough, there was a typo and some of the formatting was wrong, but I learned and I fixed it for the next time. So the problem is that if you aren't shipping before you're ready, if it's not perfect and you're just holding those ideas because you're afraid that you're going to make mistakes, you will never get anything out there, and you will never get the feedback that you need to improve it. So ship before it's ready. Hand in hand with that is the next piece of advice, which is take risks, and especially take risks that your competitors aren't taking or won't take. Now's a really good time to try something different. What's the worst that could happen? You're going to learn. Some of the biggest and best and brightest companies that we all use every single day started in a downturn, started in a recession, started when people were, finally uncomfortable enough to say, what the heck? Nothing else is working right now. Let's try something new. And so I learned this week from someone way smarter than me, is that the very best thing that comes out of crisis and chaos is the ability to take risks, because people are more likely to forgive mistakes because we are all figuring it out as we go. So now is a really good time to try that new idea, or start creating that thing, or start sending out that newsletter, or pick up the phone and make those phone calls. Now is the time to do those things. Remembering also that marketing, the entire goal of marketing is to build relationships, not just databases. People get so tired of the never-ending sales pitch, but we never get tired of being treated like friends. So ask yourself, as you look at your marketing, is this pitching stuff? Is this a constant sales pitch? Or is this talking to someone like, hey, I care about you. This might be important to you right now. I want to help. Also, now's a really good time to make sure that the underlying theme in your marketing is give. Give more than they asked for and more than they paid for. I will tell you, as a frequent traveler, that this is the singular most memorable business experience on the planet. If I get upgraded unexpectedly for free, I am going to tell everybody I know about how great that experience was. So now is a really good time to be transparent in our marketing and to give people more. Now is not the time to suppress information and say, I'm not putting the price on this so that people will call me, or I'm going to make it difficult for people to see the photos so that they'll call me. Now is a time to say generously, here is everything that you need to know. Here's a virtual tour and a floor plan and all of the photos, and and contact me if you want a virtual walkthrough. And I have all of the information that you need. And we did a pre-inspection. Here it is. The more generous and transparent we can be in times like this, the more effective our marketing is. This one sort of goes without saying, but stop telling people crap they don't care about. It is really sort of true. As you're going through your marketing pieces, your social media, especially right now, if it's all about you, the chances are that your stuff falls in this category. So again, ask yourself, does this help someone or solve their problem or answer their questions? If not, rework it. It doesn't mean that you can't market. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be posting on the internet or on social media. It just means that you need to tweak the message a little bit. My best advice for everybody right now is ask yourself, does this right now? Just because it worked last spring or it's something that you've always done doesn't necessarily mean that it works right now. So ask yourself, is this something that works right now? All right. Section number 4, last section that I have for you, because we've talked about time and money and marketing. And now we're going to talk for just a minute about sanity. We joke a lot that you have to be a special kind of crazy to work in this business. But the reality is that it is a difficult business. And right now it's particularly challenging. We have all kinds of regulations that are keeping us from doing what it is that we normally do. But that doesn't mean that we still can't be sane. So how do we do that? My first piece of advice for you is find your tribe. Find a group of people that you can lean into that are not always going to agree with you, that are going to tell you the tough truth when you need it. I have a group of 5 people in my business. I call them my board of directors, and they're really advisors to me. I float stuff past them before I hit that go button. I say, I just need a second set of eyes on this. What do you think? But I also, expect real honest feedback from them. I want them to say, Val, that sucks. Don't do that. Or, hey, this could be better. And I really learn a lot. So now's a really good time to reach out and find those people that will be truthful and help you put a second set of eyes on some of the stuff that you're doing right now. Equally as important is put some accountability in place. Here's the thing with accountability is that when we run our own business and we are our own boss, a lot of the times we think that the bonus of that is that there's nobody to tell us what to do. We're the boss. The downside of that is there's nobody to tell us what to do. So we have to be the boss of ourselves. So having some accountability in place is really helpful on pajama days. And, pajama days are the most important days to have somebody that says, hey, how are you doing? Have you been working on that? How are you coming along with that? Is there anything I can do to help? So get some systems and some people in place in your business who are going to help you do that. So whether that's setting some reminders in your calendar and blocking some time out, those are some really good systems. Maybe it's, using an app like Rescue Time that's going to, let you set timers and is going to keep you on track. But maybe it's people. Maybe it's, those daily or weekly check-in groups where you have the same people sort of holding each other accountable. But now's a really good time to put some accountability in place in your business so that you can maintain some momentum. Equally as important for your sanity is understand the difference between no and yes. And knowing your no's from your yeses is very, very critical, especially in pajama seasons. So one of the things that we struggle with as we grow up and become adults is we struggle with saying no. We tend to just find that it's so much easier to just say yes. But the problem is it's not. That we end up taking on things that we shouldn't or taking on clients or problems that we shouldn't. So remember that sometimes we have to say no to good stuff so that we can say yes to the really great stuff. And learn right now to get very comfortable saying no and without making excuses or explaining why, but knowing that you're doing that to make time for yeses. So looking at some of the things that you've taken onto your plate right now and start to identify, is this something I should be spending time on? Is this a situation that I should be devoting time and effort and energy and money and resources to or not? And these are really good things to do when we're in pajama days and we're feeling a bit like, I don't have anything to do. But we often are just not spending our time on the yeses that we should. Also, really encourage you, especially in times like this, but more importantly than ever on pajama days, to lean in. And lean in just essentially means help other people. So I find that when I have really bad days, if I have a particularly blue day or a very intense pajama day in my business, that it makes me feel really good to help other people, to find a way to help somebody else. And it gives me the lift that I need to sort of get back in it and to get back to work and focus on something. And it also keeps things into perspective for me that I think, you know what, I'm not that bad off. So whether that's send somebody a note, pick up a phone and call somebody, order them flowers, send them a gift card, just doing something for somebody. Something I was telling somebody yesterday, one of the best things that we can do from home right now to build our business, all of us, is we can start sending people reviews and testimonials. So go on to Yelp or Facebook or to LinkedIn and look at some of those agents you've worked across the table with on deals in the last year. Look at some of those vendor partners, those inspectors, those lenders, those builders, those tile guys, those electricians, and send them some love on their reviews and testimonials. Now's a good time to be doing that, because what's great is they'll do the same for you, or they'll do the same for other people. Your local businesses right now are struggling. Give them a little bit of love on their reviews and social media. I think that you'll find that that'll put things into perspective for you and also give you that lift that you need. On the flip side of that, if you need help, reach out. Ask for help. No matter what your mom says, you aren't good at everything and you can't do it all. So stop trying. When you get to pajama days, often sometimes we can tend to spiral into this worry, and this sort of, it freezes us up and we aren't doing anything. And sometimes all we need to do is just put our hand up and say, hey, can somebody help me get started with this? Or does anybody have a great book or tool or podcast or piece of advice that's going to help me in this situation? The nice thing is you'll get the help that you need. And the really awesome thing is that you're going to help somebody else lean in on the other side. So that will help with your sanity. Having a schedule, super important. Like I said, having that routine, getting up, waking up, getting to work, putting some clothes on that are not necessarily pajamas. But also it's really important for us to stop working at a certain point too. For those of you that are maybe transitioning right now into working from home full time and have never done that before, you'll find that it can get really easy to just work all the time, just late at night, answering emails super late, taking phone calls, never really stopping the work cycle. And your brain needs a break. So make sure that you sometimes do that. Give yourself a break, rest, spend time with your family, in an environment that's not trying to get work done. Equally, on that note, don't work when you're not working. So what I can advise you is just be present where you are. If you're sitting at the dinner table having dinner with your family, be there. Um, this is super applicable, not for a lot of us right now that are not traveling, but we do teach people how to treat us. So if your out of office says one thing and your actions say another, they're going to believe you, not your out of office. So don't work when you're not working and be present where you are. Last piece of advice I have for you on your sanity is find your why. And we talk a lot about why, like why do you get out of bed and what is it that you do? But the reality is that if you know what your why is and you can find something to be passionate about in your business, the rest is all going to fall into place. If you know what that thing is that really just sort of gets you moving, you know that you're going to devote time and money and marketing to talking about that thing. And you're going to find that it's going to make all of those things a little bit easier. So one last quote for you and then a little bit of homework. Perseverance is the hard work you do after you get tired of doing the hard work you already did. And oh my God, do we not feel this one right now? We're all a little bit tired of doing the hard work that we already did. But the reality is that we do have to keep going. So a couple of things for you for homework today. Get out of bed and do something, whatever that something is. Know what your value is and how to tell others. That's what's going to translate the best right now in your marketing. Fall in love with what you do. Ship before it's ready. Get some accountability in place. That will really help you. Learn to say no because you're saying yes to something else, and know why that you get out of bed in the morning. But most importantly, more than anything that I've told you today, begin. Get up in the morning and begin something. Keep momentum going. The situation that we are in right now, this pajama season in our industry, in our world, it's temporary. It is going to come to an end at a certain point. And so we need to continue to maintain momentum so that we aren't running from a complete and total stop when this gets started again. So, all right, I've got some Q&A. I've noticed there's some questions in the question box. Now's a great time to jump in chat. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to answer a couple of these. Is there a software you recommend to help you with time blocking? I really like Rescue Time. As I mentioned, that's free. It's a website. There's also an app. What it does is it allows you to set timers, and it helps keep you from opening distracting websites. You can say, don't allow me to log on to social media while I'm working on this. So that's one of the tools that I really like. It's called Rescue Time. What do you use to track your expenses? So I am pretty traditional when it comes to tracking my expenses. I use QuickBooks and I use a spreadsheet, and I have a date marked in my calendar. It happens to be today because it's the 9th of every month. I have a date marked in my calendar where every single month I download all of my expenses from my credit cards and I upload those into QuickBooks, and I take the time to go in and mark whether those were work-related expenses or not. And the reason why I do that is because the first year that I ran my own business and I didn't do that, I ended up having to do all 12 months at the end of the year for taxes, and it was a pain in the you-know-what. So I don't do that anymore. So I use that. Now, I've also heard lots of people use tools like Mint, or I think there's one called Broker Mint, that's really helpful for you to track your expenses. I also cannot recommend the book or the website Profit First more than anything. I would recommend that. That really helps you to understand where your expenses come from and where do they go and how you can categorize them. So those are all suggestions that I would have for you for your expenses. So. All right, so we still have a couple of minutes left. If anybody has any questions, we've got some people still on here. Just jump in the chat box. Let me know if you have any questions at all about, again, time, money, marketing, sanity, things that you should or shouldn't be doing in marketing right now, any advice that I can offer, some of the things that I'm seeing out there. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those in. I'll give you another second or so. If I don't see any questions, I'll finish this up. Just as a reminder for those of you on the call, I have recorded this. I will make sure that you get a copy of it. All right, so we don't have any other questions in here. I'm going to wrap up. My contact information is on the screen. Happy for you to get in touch with me. Jimmy's asking, what is the website for Profit First? If you just Google Profit First, you will find it. It's a very well-known book. You can't miss it. And there's a number of online resources that are going to help you with that. Profit First is an amazing system that will allow you to actually figure out what your profit point is in your business, and then budget and also manage your expenses so that you can be profitable. So great place to get started if you need some financial help. No problem. All right, we're going to wrap up. Thanks so much for joining me today. Hopefully you found some of this helpful. I'm hoping that you all are taking away at least one thing that you can focus on today so that you can begin to bust those pajama days and have less of them. So again, thank you for having me. We'll make sure you get the recording. Have a great afternoon.